This is the English service of Radio Algeria International. It's time for the news.
Here in Algiers, on behalf of President Abdelmajid Tebboune, the Minister of War Veterans had signed the Book of Condolences at the Iranian embassy following the killing of a number of Iranians in recent attacks by the army of the Zionist entity. Iran has officially suspended its cooperation with the International Atomic Energy Agency after stepping up accusations against it since the recent war with the Zionist entity. The UN has reiterated its warning regarding the worsening humanitarian conditions critical to the survival of Palestinians. Hello and welcome to Radio Algeria International. I'm Jamal Smani. Prime Minister Mr. Al-Arbawi has chaired a government meeting as part of the ongoing monitoring of major structural projects. The meeting examined the progress made in the implementation of Garage Bilet Industrial Mine Project and the mining railway linking Bishar Tindouf and Garage Bilet, a distance of 950 kilometers. This project is a key contributor to the development of an integrated national iron and steel industry within the framework of the President of the Republic's strategic vision aimed at enhancing the country's national resources. Now, the Minister of Mujahideen or War Veterans, Mr. Darbiga, has signed on behalf of the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, the Book of Condolences at the headquarters of the Embassy of Iran in Algiers, following the killing of a number of Iranian officials, scientists and citizens in the recent aggression carried out by the Zionist entity. In his message of condolences, Mr. Rabiga, on behalf of the Algerian president and people, expressed deep sorrow, extending condolences and full solidarity with Iran, prayed for the victims and wished recovery to the injured. He also firmly condemned the assassinations and violations of Iran's sovereignty as breaches of international law and human rights. Mr. Rabiga has affirmed at the international symposium entitled Colonial Crimes in the History of Humanity, from the Wounds of Collective Memory to the Demand for Historical Justice, that Algeria supported all efforts demanding justice and colonial crimes, particularly those committed by the French occupation in Algeria, with the aim of ending the policy of denial and impunity. The details with Asya Bikar.
During the opening of the symposium organized by the Ministry of War Veterans under the high patronage of the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, Mr. Obiga stated that Algeria aims to hold perpetrators accountable for the lasting impacts of colonialism, including slavery, exploitation and cultural destruction. He said the symposium is a call for justice and remembrance, stressing the need to recognize, not ignore, the enduring colonial crimes against Algeria and other nations.
This symposium is a cry of conscience against oblivion and bridge toward delayed justice. The heinous colonial crimes suffered by Algeria and many other peoples around the world are not subjected to a statute of limitations in accordance with all international principles and charters, and cannot be erased through denial or forgetfulness, but must be addressed through recognition of these crimes.
Mr. Rubiga highlighted Algeria's role as a key advocate for peace, justice and liberation causes inspired by its revolutionary legacy. He reaffirmed Algeria's unwavering support for just struggles, notably those of the Sahrawi and Palestinian peoples. He also stressed the importance of preserving historical memory as a foundation for justice, noting a renewed global awareness among formerly colonized nations, demanding recognition of past injustices and building a future based on dignity and mutual respect. The Minister of War Veterans described the symposium held in celebration of the 63rd anniversary of Independence Day as a valuable platform to deepen discussion on colonial crimes, calling it a moral and historical duty and a stand against forgetting.
As you followed in our top stories, Iran has officially suspended its cooperation with the International Atomic Energy Agency after stepping up accusations against it since the recent war with the Zionist entity. On the 25th of June, the day after the ceasefire that ended 12 days of aggression, the Iranian parliament voted overwhelmingly in favor of a bill suspending cooperation between the Islamic Republic and the UN agency. The law was then approved by the Guardian Council, the body in charge of reviewing legislation in Iran, before being ratified by Iranian President Massoud. Then coming into force, Iranian officials had strongly denounced what they called the silence of the agency in the face of the Zionist and American bombing of Iran's nuclear sites. Tehran had also criticized the agency for a resolution adopted on the 12th of June, on the eve of the first Zionist strikes, which accused Iran of failing to comply with its nuclear obligations. Now to the Western Sahara fire. The collective of Sahrawi human rights defenders, Codesa, has once again launched an urgent appeal to the international community to guarantee the effective protection of Sahrawi human rights defenders in Western Sahara. This appeal comes after the Moroccan occupying force imposed a siege on the home of the former Sahrawi political prisoner Ali Salem Tamak, who is also president of the collective. The details in this report by Said Bougazi.
The collective stated in a press release that Codesa renews its urgent appeal to the competent international bodies to intervene in order to put an end to the cycle of repression and systematic persecution and to guarantee the effective protection of Sahrawi human rights defenders in Western Sahara. Strongly condemning this repressive siege, the collective holds the Moroccan state as the occupying force fully responsible for the physical and moral integrity of human rights defender Ali Salem Tamak, his family, and all the members of the organization. On Monday, the Moroccan occupying force laid siege to the home of former Sahrawi political prisoner Ali Salem Tamak, which served as the organization's temporary headquarters, with the aim of preventing the holding of the Constitutive General Assembly of the Codesa section in occupied La'youn, and an action of solidarity with the Sahrawi political prisoners incarcerated in Moroccan jails, notably the detainees of the Gdaymizik group. This escalation follows on from the ban imposed on the organization's first National Congress in October 2023 in a blatant violation of the right to freedom of association and peaceful assembly, which is guaranteed by international humanitarian law and international human rights instruments. According to this human rights organization, this siege is part of a vast campaign of repression and intimidation targeting members of Codesa. This campaign, it continued, aims to hinder the legitimate human rights work as part of a systematic policy of harassment against Sahrawi human rights defenders in Western Sahara.
Still with the Western Sahara file, according to Spanish writer and journalist Victoria Garcia Correra, the Moroccan regime is engaging in genuine state terrorism in the occupied Sahrawi territories through its use of arbitrary arrests of activists, acts of torture, and enforced disappearances. In a well-researched article published on the platform Don't Forget Western Sahara, the Spanish writer stated that all reports from non-governmental organizations confirm that the methods used by the Moroccan regime against Sahrawi activists in the occupied territories amount to state terrorism as defined and recognized worldwide. You're still listening to Radio Algeria International. The Assistant Secretary General for the Middle East, Asia and the Pacific, Khaled Khiari, has said that the level of suffering and brutality in Gaza is unbearable. Ashabikar has more.
Speaking at a briefing of the UN Security Council, the Assistant Secretary General for the Middle East expressed deep concern at the Israeli war on Gaza, expressing the Secretary General's firm condemnation.
The Secretary General unequivocally condemns the widespread killing and injury of civilians in Gaza, including children and women, and the destruction of homes, schools, hospitals, and mosques. The level of suffering and brutality in Gaza is unbearable. The continued collective punishment of the Palestinian people is unjustifiable. We remain deeply concerned by Israeli military operations in Gaza that render large areas of Gaza uninhabitable. We reject the forced displacement of the Palestinian population from any part of the occupied Palestinian territory, which would constitute a breach of international law obligations. We mourn the United Nations personnel killed in Gaza and strongly condemns the killing of all health and humanitarian personnel and journalists.
He also denounced the loss of lives and injuries of Palestinians seeking aid in Gaza and called for an immediate and independent investigation into these events and for perpetrators to be held accountable.
Following almost 80 days of Israeli denial of entry of all humanitarian commercial supplies into Gaza, supplies have started to enter Gaza at wholly inadequate levels, which do not meet the massive needs of the population. We call upon Israel to fulfill its obligation under international law and allow the rapid and unimpeded passages of humanitarian relief for civilians in need. We strongly condemn the loss of lives and injuries of Palestinians seeking aid in Gaza, and we call for an immediate and independent investigation into these events and for perpetrators to be held accountable. The United Nations will not participate in any aid delivery modality that does not comply with the fundamental humanitarian principles of humanity, impartiality, independence, and neutrality.
The United Nations reiterated its warning regarding the worsening humanitarian conditions critical to the survival of Palestinians, highlighting that the Gaza Strip is facing severe shortages in livelihood opportunities and shelter availability due to ongoing attacks by the Israeli occupation forces. It highlighted that numerous families who had fled schools struck by occupation shelling recently have now returned to northern Gaza, primarily because of the scarcity of alternative livelihood options and limited shelter availability in other areas.
A new Zionist military directive threatens to destroy a dozen villages in Masafer Yatta in the south of the occupied West Bank, thereby accelerating the ethnic cleansing of the region, which began several years ago, according to media reports. A document published last week by the Zionist Armed Command Center requires residents of the area to leave, citing military needs. Said Bouazi has more.
The report specifically mentions firing zone 918, which encompasses 12 of the 20 villages in Masafer Yatta, and which the Zionist entity declared a closed military zone in the early 1980s in order to forcibly displace its Palestinian residents. Following this directive, the so-called Central Planning Office of the Civil Administration, the Zionist military entity that issues building permits in the occupied Palestinian territories, adopted a policy of systematically rejecting all pending building applications in Masafer Yatta. This directive is part of a long-standing Zionist strategy of using firing zones as a pretext to expropriate Palestinians and expand settlements. According to Nidal Yunus, chairman of the Masafer Yatta Council, at least 25 pending construction projects in several villages, including Jimba, Halawa, and El Fakhit, could be rejected very soon, paving the way for a massive wave of demolitions. According to Nidal Yunus, in recent years, the Zionist occupation army had avoided mass expulsions to avoid international criticism, preferring to systematically refuse building permits and demolish gradually. The Zionists did not want the world to see that they were carrying out ethnic cleansing, so they did not expel people by loading them onto trucks, he explains, adding, "They are wearing us down little by little, demolition, bans on building or working, in the hope that we will eventually leave the area out of sheer exhaustion."
The International Committee of the Red Cross has said that it is deeply alarmed as the Zionist occupation army intensified its savage aggression against Gaza, with the few medical facilities still operational in the Palestinian enclave already overwhelmed. In a statement, the ICRC expressed concern about the intensification of hostilities in Gaza City and Jabalia, which are reported to have caused dozens of civilian deaths and injuries over the past 36 hours. In other news, the UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has said that the Sevilla Platform for Action offers an ambitious response to the global development crisis. In Spain, speaking during the launch of the Sevilla Platform for Action at the 4th International Conference on Financing for Development, Antonio Guterres said that the platform provides a springboard towards a more just, inclusive and sustainable world.
The Sevilla Platform for Action is so critical and so significant. In the midst of a world of division, conflict and economic uncertainty, this platform contains more than 130 specific initiatives that demonstrate that we can achieve by working together. Governments, private sector, partners, international institutions and civil society, groups all together teaming up to launch high-impact initiatives to bring the Sevilla commitment to life. This includes a global hub for debt swaps at the World Bank as part of a broader facility aiming at relieving liquidity constraints and lowering the cost of borrowing. A debt pause alliance to help countries in times of crisis. A global coalition to scale up prearranged finance that can be readily deployed when disasters strike. A blended finance platform to bring public and private finance together in a new and expanded way. A new tool for multilateral development banks to manage currency risks, and a commission to explore the future of development cooperation.
Mr. Guterres added that the government, private sector partners, international institutions and civil society groups all together are teaming up to launch high-impact initiatives to bring the Sevilla commitment to life, which is a global hub for debt swaps at the World Bank as part of a broader facility aimed at relieving liquidity constraints and lowering the cost of borrowing. This is Radio Algeria International. Stay tuned.
Hello and welcome to this fresh edition of Inspiring Figures. Today we'll delve into the exceptional life of one of the major heroines of Algerian resistance to the French colonial expansion in Algeria during the 19th century, namely Lalla Fatma Nsoume.